play drums, and use a DW maple drum kit, and play Zildjian cymbals, and I use Evans drum heads. Usually I use coated heads on top and clears on bottom, usually using G2s on the tops and G1 clears on the bottom, and then in the studio I may go to a single ply head, use a G1 on the top and use a G1 on the bottom, and then the snare drum is usually a G1 coated with a AZ300 on the bottom side of the snare. Kind of grew up on a lot of the American drum companies, and the old style of making drums was pretty much back in the 40s and 50s, where they used maple shells, and they would use reinforcement hoops, which are kind of, you'd have like a 3-ply drum shell, and then on the top and bottom rim you'd have like another 2 or 3 plies on top of that that was only an inch thick. So you would have like sort of a hoop within a hoop on the drum shells. And so Slingerland and Ludwig and a lot of companies back in the 40s and 50s made drums with maple reinforcement hoops. And then pretty much around in the 70s and 80s, a lot of companies went to birch and started making like 8-ply birch drum shells, and they were really, really heavy. And there was no reinforcement hoops, and you know that spawned like the famous Yamaha recording custom kits and the Tama Superstar kits, and so I had a couple of those kits as well. But then you know, DW really made a push to kind of go back to that old style of making drums and using, you know, the maple shells with the reinforcement hoops, and so I really feel like they give a different tone, and the birch drums are really kind of loud and exploding and they have their own character, but the maple shells with the reinforcement hoops kind of give a more pronounced fundamental note. And DW also, on all their drum shells, specifically tunes each shell to a specific pitch. So like the actual shell has a fundamental note that it'll actually resonate as. So you know, a lot of people will get their toms in thirds or fourths and fifths, and so not necessarily you're going to tune them to that, but that you have that option if you want, and that's like where the drum resonates the best. And so they really kind of went into more of the science of making, you know, a shell, and you know, and you know, the big thing too back in the 80s and 90s was to try to get the least amount of contact to the actual drum shell. So a lot of companies started making what they call rim suspension systems. So the mounts that mount the toms either on the bass drum or onto the stands didn't physically go into the drums. They would mount the drum mount off of the rim of the drum, so they hang in. So when you strike a tom, it gets to resonate as long as possible because there's not moving parts holding the drum. So pretty much now all the drum manufacturers, I would say pretty much 90% of them no longer have mounts that are mounted physically on the drum. They all free suspend, and that's kind of the newer technology of a lot of people are making drums that way, and try to put, like, for the lugs that actually attach the rims, try to use only like one hole that goes into the drum. So the theory is the least amount of contact or holes in the drum are going to allow the shell to ring the longest. And so they were pretty groundbreaking on doing that, DW, as far as, you know, going to the rim suspension system and really kind to pay attention to a lot of those contact points. And you know, I kind of just still liked, you know, being in contact with an American company, and you know, just was something that, you know, even with Zildjian and Evans up in Farmingdale, New York, and I also play Vader drumsticks, it was just something that I kind of felt like, you know, that I really wanted to. And all the companies are very family oriented, and so there's a deep history, especially with the Zildjian company and with Vader as well, with the two brothers, Ronnie and Alan. So I kind of like that as well with the companies I work with.